Welcome to Batshit, a frank and funny look at living with mental illness.
While we'll touch on several illnesses, Batshit is focused on those along the spectrum of bipolar disorders. I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm your other host, Brad.
And we're both bipolar. So strap in, and let's see how batshit we really are.
Spoiler alert! Pretty damn batshit. This episode's topic, obsession.
And it's not the Calvin Klein fragrance, guys. We're not going to talk about perfume.
But you know what I was making Adam listen to?
Mm.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. You're my obsession.
Thank you. I'm sitting
You're
there going, I can't think of
obsession.
any of the lyrics now.
Do you want me to be?
Oh, that's a great song.
Especially the way I sing.
well, yeah, that goes without saying, I think. So part of the reason that we're doing this episode is someone wrote in. I don't know if am I allowed to say their name? Hold on.
You can say their first name.
Where is it here? Do you have it in front of you? Why can't I find it?
Oh, I got it. We're very prepared, folks.
Oh, no, we are. But the thing is, there's been so many people writing in and asking us questions, and it's been amazing. But I'm looking at this, going, how do I find the information? Oh, it's Jade. Hey,
Jade, yeah.
Jade. Sorry about that.
Sorry,
All right.
Jade.
Maybe I'll cut all that out. Maybe I won't. Who knows? So Jade had a question. Who has bipolar 2 and BPD. They've suffered more of the depressive part. Me too. I hear you. Do either of you have issues with anxiety or obsessive thoughts? And it's just like the minute we got that message, Brad sent it to me, and we're both just like, oh yeah. I mean, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wish there was a more balanced way for me to approach anything in my life, but it's never simple or balanced. It's always 1,000%.
Yeah, it's the same for me. It's like I used to before I was diagnosed. I would say things like dumb shit to myself, like, well, I'm a high testosterone dude, therefore I get hyper focused and fixated on one task. And blah, blah, blah,
That's
blah,
probably
blah.
it. That's probably what it is.
That's
Brad.
not what it is. That's not what it is.
It's so not.
It's mental illness.
It's mental illness. Yeah, there's no balance for me. I talk about. I'll give you an example when it comes to my diet. There is no moderation for me, right?
Yeah.
If I'm eating something, I'm eating all of it. It has nothing to do with my hunger. It's something, there's a task associated with it, and I'm just shoving the chips into my mouth until I'm done.
Yeah, and my diet is either completely on point and I never deviate from it, or I eat fast food every night.
Right. Yeah. So I always do these almost like elimination style diets. I do the Tim Ferriss 4-hour body. I'll do keto. And those work well for me because my obsessive compulsive nature is okay, you can only eat these things at these times in this way. And that's how I'm able to stick to a balanced diet.
Yeah.
Because I can obsess over the minutia, and I can obsess over the every little thing I'm putting into my body. But like Brad said, if I'm not doing that, then it's just everything goes out the window.
Yeah. And I get like that with any weird thing I'm into. You know, if I'm into a show, I got to binge the whole thing.
Right.
If I'm into, a video game, I got to just power through it.
Power through the whole thing.
You know, if I'm into a new script or book I'm working on, we've talked about this before with Mania and the creativity and whatnot, but I just, that becomes my life until I'm finished with it.
Right. Well, look at this podcast. I mean, when we started this podcast, Brad and I were talking via text mostly, but 3 or 4 hours a day about the podcast is how it felt. Just going back and forth about things we can talk about, ways we can do it. And
did you see these numbers went up?
Yeah, exactly.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to find comparative podcasts, and I, this and that. And
we were talking about the growth in our numbers, by the way, before we started recording tonight, and we were like, "Hey, did you see this number went up, and this number went up, and this number?" I don't know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. It's like watching,
is that good?
It's like watching monkeys play with a tire. We're like, we don't fucking know, but yeah, yes. So Jade. Short answer, yeah, I think obsession is a big part of this. And I think part of it for and I'm going to speak just for myself, it's a way of coping. It's a way, if I get hyper fixated on something, I have control over that thing, right? Like if I have
Well, if it is something that you can have control
but
over.
that's just it, which is why I think personally I tend to focus on things that I do have control over when I get hyper obsessive.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. You don't always have that choice.
No.
Right?
I mean, you could very easily. You see a lot of people who do this. They become, they develop obsession with something going on in the news.
Oh
for
yeah,
instance. And that could be something legitimate, like oh my god, I have to read every school shooting story.
Oh my god,
that comes across my desk, or that can be nutcase stuff like oh, I'm now in QAnon.
Well, do you remember the story of the guy who went to New York City because there were kids being kept in the basement of a pizza joint in New York City?
Right.
Do you remember this story?
And he was going to rescue them,
and he was super obsessed with the idea that, and you couldn't talk him out of it. Like,
and
that
it turned out the place didn't even have a basement.
Didn't even have a basement.
Yeah.
And it's you can't tell me there's not something going on with that guy that he needs some treatment for. But
and then you can also become obsessed with another person.
Ooh, yeah, relationships, especially if you're in a relationship and they bring you some modicum of joy coming out of a depressive state. You when people are drowning and they say, don't go too close because they'll grab you and drag you under. Like, that's how it felt with a lot of my early relationships, because I'd be in a huge depressive state. This woman would come into my life that brought like a glimmer of hope, and I would drag her to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Like, it's like, you're coming with me, lady. I'm sorry. I know you thought this would be fun. It's not going to be fun.
You're like Jason Voorhees at the end of Friday the 13th, busting out of the lake and pulling her under. And, she asked about anxiety too. I would always get that. I would become hyper obsessed with someone. And then when I wasn't with them, I would have anxiety about them.
Oh, totally.
And constantly be like, oh man, are they going to get back to me? Should I text them?
Right. And we're not
Maybe I should text them too much.
Right. And
way too much.
And we're not talking all the time.
Way too much.
And we're not talking about your like first date jitters. We're not talking about your palpitation, like the young love type of stuff. We're talking about just being
like you're with somebody, you have an established relationship. There's no reason to think that anything should be going wrong with whatever that established relationship is. Yet you constantly feel like if you're not in constant contact with them and getting positive feedback, something's going wrong.
Something's wrong. Yeah. She's doing something, or like she's
forgotten about it.
She's figured you out. Like something's wrong. It's gross. I tried to date casually while I was in Los Angeles, which, by the way, I don't recommend it to anyone. Before I met Mandy, I can't even tell you guys how Mandy is like an oasis in a sea of crap out here. But I tried to date casually, and I don't do casual well. I don't do casual. I would get hyper fixated on these women that I would like. If I found one that I actually liked, like I would be. I remember there was this one woman that I was seeing super casually. It was super casual. And, we'd text, and I'd try and keep it in check. I try and, I'd kind of do that thing where I pick up the phone, put the phone down. Pick up the phone, put the phone down. Don't text. So there was a moment one day, this woman was a teacher, where she got out of school at, say 3 o'clock or something like that. And I sent her a text at 3:30 being like, hey, how was your day? And I didn't hear back. And I didn't hear back for the rest of the day. And I lost my goddamn mind. I was calling her, texting her, sending her messages to some of her friends, being like, what's wrong? And her phone had died. That was it. But I had left 16 voicemails, 32 texts, called 3 of her friends. That relationship didn't work out.
Really?
I know. That's surprising, isn't it? And I remember at the time being like, why didn't you understand? I just care about her, and I want to make sure she's okay.
Because you have that obsessive anxiety.
Right. And you go through that. That stage of oh my God, she's mad at me. Oh my God, she hates me. 2 hours go by. She's been kidnapped. She's been murdered. Oh my God, she's met someone else. She's with someone else. She's fucking some other guy right now. And it's just all these stages of anxiety and insanity and yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. So long story short, don't date casually in Los Angeles. Or bring a charger for your phone.
I tell you, here's the thing about Los Angeles, you poor single bastards. The most beautiful people in the world
Stunning.
move to Los Angeles. But here's the thing. If you're the most beautiful person in Peoria, you never had to develop a personality.
No, you did not.
And so they all come to LA and they think they can still get by on being pretty.
Yeah.
And it's like, nope. You're a bunch of boring, self-absorbed sacks of shit.
SAG and the WGA are striking right now, so I'm on the picket lines a couple times a week, and you just see the most beautiful people walking this picket line. And, you know, I'm there with my friends. I'm not talking to these people, but they're within earshot, so I can't help but overhear conversations. And I'm like, how... What? Like, have you never had a tried to have a casual conversation or carry on? Have you never had to be interesting? Oh, you haven't, because you're so beautiful.
Right.
You're so beautiful.
But now you're in a town where everybody is.
Everybody's so beautiful out here. Like, even the uggos aren't beautiful. You know what I mean? There's no.
Well,
threes.
there's that old dumbass saying where an LA 5 is a Tennessee 8 or something like that.
LA 5. That's great.
My favorite thing talking about LA is from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I love that movie.
Robert Downey Jr. is talking about women in LA, and he says, it's like somebody grabbed a map of the United States by the East Coast and shook it, and all the same people held on.
Accurate statement. But I mean, let's talk about the beautiful people. Right? Talk about an
beautiful
obsession.
People.
No,
the
I mean
people.
So yeah, great song. In Los Angeles, where you're surrounded by people, you walk into a town where you used to be the most beautiful person in Peoria, Illinois. You walk into Los Angeles. Now you're surrounded by people as equally good looking as you, if not more attractive than you.
Right.
And we just had Jess on the podcast not too long ago. And I can't even imagine what that does to someone's mental state when they're trying to get work.
If you guys didn't listen to that, she's a professional model.
Yes,
for the last
thank
12
you.
years.
If your looks are your currency, and then all of a sudden your currency isn't as valued as it used to be, and everyone out here is telling you, well, then you have to be more beautiful. You have to be thinner. You have to be more fit. You have to be, your boobs got to be bigger. Your lips have to be more sweet. You got to wax your entire body. Like, talk about an unhealthy obsession right there, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of careers that have to deal with that. Models, actresses, sex workers, where it's like your entire identity is now tied up. Not just tied up in your body, but tied up in how you have to present your body to the tastes of other people.
Right.
So it can't even be like, this is what I want to look like, and I'm obsessing about it, and I think I look good now, or I don't think I look good by my own standards. It's like, no, it's that chud standards over there, that 300-pound guy drooling
and
over me across the office.
And you become obsessed with how they perceive you.
Yeah.
And you become obsessed with how you can change your appearance or change your presentation to suit their wants, and get obsessed with that. And that's a losing battle. There's nothing you can do there.
Yeah.
Much like calling a woman when her cell phone's dead. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, it's like...
Well, that's a good point, because the episode with Jess was about eating disorders.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, in the world of modeling.
Weird!
But that's basically what that is. That's an obsession.
Yeah, with food or with your...
With food and your body and, all this. Body dysmorphia in general. Men who don't feel that they're muscular enough or ripped enough.
Sure.
Whatever, any way that you want to peg this, it's an obsession of sorts that leads to that.
And some of the greatest, most successful people in the world have been crazy obsessive.
Yeah.
You can't tell me Beethoven wasn't obsessive. You can't tell me Van Gogh wasn't obsessive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
You're talking about, we kind of celebrate it.
Yeah.
Like society celebrates that obsession, because what that says is that you're really passionate or intent or intense about a given subject.
But that can destroy so many other parts of your life and so many pieces of your personality.
But the question is, does that matter if you're successful in the other aspect of it? Sure, Van Gogh cut off his ear and mailed it to a love interest, but he did Starry Night.
Yeah.
So no,
there was this friend I had once who had to work a job that required her to, maintain certain levels of beauty. And she was a beautiful girl, and like, but part of it was her personality, and she was like,
sure,
fun and curious and blah blah blah. And the longer she did it, the more obsessed she became with her body, to where she no longer had anything else to talk about.
Yeah.
And so she would just have conversations about like her breasts,
right?
And it got to where that made her not pretty anymore. It's like, you're kind of gross.
It's like the guys who talk about CrossFit all the time. You're like, well, dude, do you fucking deadlift, or what kind of weight are you throwing?
What's your numbers on Murph?
Yeah, Murph, gross, gross, Murph.
Thanks for listening. Help us continue the conversation. Leave us a comment with your thoughts, experiences, or questions about mental health. Every opinion and viewpoint is valid. Just don't be a dick.
But yeah, I think obsession is completely natural when it comes to having these diseases. Like, it's a very easy and obvious sign that something's not on, because you're not balanced. Right? At the end of the day, you're not balanced. And so if you're seeing people with these like hardcore obsession, and it could be about their body, it could be about another person, it could be about the Dark Tower series, which is something Brad's obsessed with.
By the way, so Roland the Gunslinger. He's the last of his kind.
I know he is, buddy. I know he is.
We haven't even gotten into the quartet.
Thank you, Sai. It's one of those situations where, like, it's a sign. It's being obsessive. I'm going to say this. I don't think being obsessive in and of itself is a terrible thing. I think as long as you're aware of what that obsession is and how it's affecting your life.
Right. And you're managing it.
If
you're letting it get to the point where there's the anxiety around it, you're neglecting other things.
Right. Like,
you're texting the chick 87 times a day because she won't get back to you.
Right. Now you write, right? You write books, novels. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me you don't get obsessed with those stories.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think I said this on our very first episode. When I first saw a psychiatrist, one of her questions was, when you start a new project, do you become consumed with it? I'd met her on a Tuesday, and my answer was, well, I started a novel on Saturday, and I'm 140 pages in, so you tell me.
Right. But that's just it. Like,
but that's not healthy.
But that's not healthy.
That's not a healthy way to write.
But no, it's not a healthy way to treat the obsession or deal with the obsession. But you also can't completely control what you get obsessed with. You can't control becoming obsessed.
The obsession itself.
Of the obsession of self. Like the actual...
But for me, that obsession, in whether that's writing, whether that's working out, diet, a person I become obsessed with.
Sure.
I now know all that is the mania.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Which, on the flip side, I don't know how to fucking write anymore. I have such a hard time with it.
Like, he just sits there with a pencil and he's poking himself in the eye, and it's not pretty, guys.
It's not my creativity. My creativity is still firing like crazy. Right. It's the act of sitting down for hours at a time and writing. Like, I can't do it anymore.
Right, because you have perspective on what that obsessive style of writing was.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I'm trying to figure out how to consistently write without being obsessed. And that's difficult for me.
I mean, again, I go back and I know it's kind of, intuitive and not intuitive. It's it's kind of anti the topic of the podcast. But I think some obsession isn't like the obsession of being like of being creative. Like
well, there's probably a reason why there's so many people in the arts and entertainment. Musicians, actors, writers,
right,
comedians,
artists, yeah,
and so many people in business fields. A lot of CEOs,
Wall Street guys. Oh man,
are bipolar or have something else, OCD, etc. And that's probably part of it, is because you get really good at something by being laser focused on that thing and only doing that thing.
Right.
Even if that means your wife leaves you, your kids hate you, but God damn it, you're the one who sold Steve Madden shoes
Yeah.
on the stock exchange.
But if, okay, let me...
Little Wolf of Wall Street
Well,
reference.
that was
there
very
for you.
nice. Let me ask you this, though. Like, is it possible to control obsession? Like, is that even...
No, because I think that's the definition of obsession.
Right? It's like an uncontrollable urge.
Yeah, that you can't stop thinking about. I think you can fight it a little bit.
Well,
you can recognize, like, I'm obsessed. Like, for instance, the scenario you were talking about, texting that woman over and over again and calling her and stuff. If at any point in that you were like, oh, I'm exhibiting an obsession, I'm going to get out of the house. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to hang out with friends.
Right.
I've been able to do that before. I still think about it while I'm there, and I'm still having anxiety about it, and I'm still checking my phone religiously.
Sure.
But it's keeping me from doing like some of the crazy shit and forcing me, even though I can't get it out of my mind.
Right.
And I can't get the anxiety out of the pit of my stomach. At least I'm not just wallowing in it.
But that's kind of controlling or curbing the obsession, right? In a respect. Like,
yeah.
Because what you're doing...
it doesn't go away.
It'll never go away.
Yeah.
But
and when you get home from hanging out with your friends, you probably start texting her.
You probably start texting her. But
yeah.
you took steps to avoid giving into your obsession, right? Yeah. Because, again, let's go back to you as a writer. You get a story in your head. You want to put all that down on the page now. But if you see the danger of that, and you're like, no, you know what? I'm walking away from my computer. I'm going to spend time with my kids, spend time with my wife, go to the gym, hang out with friends, whatever. You still may be thinking about that story. You still may be processing that constantly. And, But even then, as I say that, now you're not fully present with your friends or your wife or your kids, and so it's not good. I mean, it's just not good. I guess it's hard for me because being a creative, I think I've been most successful when I've been the most obsessed.
Yeah.
Like you can't tell me that me reading every play I could get my hands on in college and after college. Like I mean. Every play I get my hands on didn't help me become a better actor and a better dramaturge. Of course it did.
No, exactly. That's the kind of catch-22 there.
Right.
I mean, you look at someone like Robin Williams, for instance.
Oh yeah.
Who at least a lot of people think he was probably undiagnosed bipolar.
Oh, I'm yeah. I think there's actually a whole documentary about
yeah. I mean, obviously you can see the mania.
Of course,
in him. But so you think about that, say he had bipolar and he was manic, and that's what drove him not only to be the crazy comic he was, but to spend all of his time working on his act, watching other comedians, hitting the clubs,
Well, look at Tom Brady with the NFL.
Yeah.
Like that guy lives and breathes football. When he's not on the field, he's doing highlight films and he's training and he's doing yoga. Like that's all he does.
Yeah.
He broke up with Giselle because he was too obsessed with football.
Yeah.
Like, guys, come on. Like, there's nothing good about that. There's nothing good about that. Again, I guess that's just hard for me to wrap my head around.
Nothing good about breaking up with Giselle.
No, what are you doing,
nothing.
bro? Tom, call me, man. We got to talk. But no, again, it's just hard for me to accept the fact that obsession is not good because I do see so many results of obsession, which are so impressive to me. Impressive.
Maybe the better word isn't good. Maybe it's not healthy.
Okay,
I think
healthy.
I think we could look at obsession as sometimes being productive, even if unhealthy.
Okay.
I think that's the kind of yin and the yang of it.
I like that. Yeah. I think that's good. Like not good, healthy. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean good things can't come of your obsession.
Right.
Like
right. You can become Tom Brady.
Right. Or you can be obsessed with finding a cure for a certain type of cancer and do it because all you do is eat, drink, and sleep cancer.
Yeah.
Don't eat or drink or sleep cancer. Don't.
Or you become obsessed with the bartender.
Right.
And end up at the bar every night and eventually get kicked out by the security. Then you're standing in the street and you're like, Lauren, why won't you answer my calls? They have to call the cops. I mean, this is a totally hypothetical.
No, hypothetical situation. You got to call your podcast partner to bail you out. Yeah. It's different. So Jade, yes, anxiety, obsession, they go hand in hand, and we both experience them all the time. And I'm betting you, any of our listeners out there who can, are raising their hand and saying, "That's me," please write in, share your experiences. I'd love to hear them.
I'd be curious if someone with clinical anxiety gets obsession like that.
Interesting. I would imagine so,
because to me, the anxiety and the obsession go hand in hand.
Sure, but I'd like OCD.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people who have OCD and anxiety, like those go hand in hand as well. And obsessive compulsive disorder, you can't tell me that's not about obsession.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but please.
But that presents in so many different ways, though. Like
it's true.
Like I have to have like 3 M&Ms laid out on.
Right. Or they're like physical tics, or like there's any number of different ways of presenting.
Yeah.
That's another thing. We should look for someone with OCD. It'd be a really interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. But yes, obsession is not healthy, but it can have some amazing results. And I think that's why a lot of people actually encourage obsession. I think, it's like they talk about, like, you want to be a famous musician, man, you got to eat, drink, sleep, the piano.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to be if you want to be a writer, you're writing 12 hours a day, every fucking day, bro.
I mean, that's what I did when I was starting out. I wrote all the time, and I consumed as much of the material that I was supposed to.
Right.
I mean, things I wanted to read also, but, I was reading as much like Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and I was taking deep dives into like Shakespeare criticism. And,
sure.
All this. And then you realize it's not all that complicated. Well, it's like this thing Bruce Lee said once. He's like, before I knew how to fight, a punch was more than a punch. A kick was more than a kick. Or no, I'm sorry. Before I knew how to fight, a punch was just a punch. A kick was just a kick. As I was learning how to fight, a punch was more than a punch, and a kick was more than a kick. And then once I knew how to fight, a punch was just a punch, and a kick was just a kick.
Sure, yeah.
It's like you have to go through the complexity to get back to the simplicity.
Yeah, but that's produced, again, some of the greatest works, some of the greatest accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me all those guys who started NASA and put a guy on the moon they weren't a little obsessed.
Yeah.
Weren't a little obsessed.
But, there wasn't a lot else to do back then.
That's true. Smoke cigarettes.
Yeah. TV sucked.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Black and white.
Music wasn't that great until probably like the later half of the 60s.
That's true.
Sorry, folks. 50s music sucks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, kinda. I hate to say that.
Doo-wop is.
I love doo-wop, though. I do. I love the coasters, and you know what? Never mind. We're gonna fight about this off the air. If you don't love doo-wop,
it's not until people start taking heavy drugs.
That's when it gets good.
Yeah. That's why blues was great. All those blues musicians were on something.
A lot of drinking.
Heroin.
Heron. Brad's white tar heroin. So yes, long story short, if you find yourself having these feelings of obsession and anxiety, and you're looking for a way to justify them and to feel all right about exuding those symptoms and putting your obsession out and your anxiety out into the world, pump the brakes, stop, and realize that what you're doing is not healthy. It's not healthy. I know you may be accomplishing amazing things by being obsessed with a topic or an action or a subject matter, but it's not a healthy way to go through life. It's not. It's something else is suffering. Mm-hmm. Something else is suffering. You may not even see it right now, but something else is suffering in your life. So take a step back, look around, and if you find yourself obsessed with, I don't know, musical theater, and you're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with being obsessed with musical theater. Well, yeah, but like, how's your relationship with your folks? How's your significant other? Have you fed your dog in 3 weeks? Like,
are you going out with your friends, or are you staying at home and listening to the Wicked soundtrack?
Yeah, don't listen to the Wicked soundtrack, you sons of bitches. No, but you're right.
I was getting like that with the gym.
Sure.
Where it was, constantly working out, constantly thinking about what I was eating, constantly like looking at my program and redesigning it, and thinking about working out, watching YouTube videos on different lifts, and and it got to the point where I was just letting other stuff go. I wasn't writing as much. I wasn't spending as much time with my kids instead of playing Fortnite with my kids when they wanted to. It's like, no, I gotta watch this. Gotta watch Dave Tate talk about the deadlift.
You never know when Dave Tate's YouTube video is going to change your life, kids. Come over here. Watch this with Daddy.
Yeah.
Daddy's a rough word. Yeah, so obsession's not healthy. Anxiety's not healthy. And there is treatment for it. There are people to talk to. There are therapists who specialize in anxiety. There are specialists who, therapists who specialize in OCD.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with finding someone to talk to.
And, I would even say if you're dealing with this and you start seeing someone and you know that you've had like this obsessive and anxiety thoughts before, tell the person.
Yeah, be upfront about it.
Be upfront about it and be like, look, this is something that I kind of struggle with that happens from time to time.
Yep.
And I don't mean it to.
Right.
If you ever feel like I'm doing this, just, nicely tell me like, hey, I think you're kind of doing that right now. Things are okay between us. You can back off.
Yeah. It's just like, it's the same as being like, you have a runny nose. Like, you have a runny nose right now. Deal with your runny nose.
Yeah, go get a tissue.
Go get a tissue. And
I'm not kissing you with the runny nose. I'm not kissing you while you're obsessed with me.
Yeah. And talk to your friends and get some perspective and your family. Talk with them about it. Like, ask them. Be honest. I mean, if they'll be honest with you if they love you. They'll say, you can approach them and be like, hey, is the fan fiction I'm writing about Greece too much? And they're like, well, it's like.
By the way, please send in your Greece fan fiction.
I would love to read it. I would love to read it. I mean,
that's the whole fan fiction thing. That's another arena where I think you see a lot of obsessive behaviors is in fan culture.
Sure, Oh, yeah. I mean, I have friends. I stream a D&D show, and I have friends who are going to Gen Con next week.
Yeah. And
this is probably going to come out weeks after Gen Con's done. But part of them is like, what kind of fans am I going to run into at Gen Con? Because they love what they do. They love the D&D scene. They love all of it. But it's a hobby and a fun pastime and a job for them. But we talked about this years ago. I don't know if you remember this, but you sent out a link to the group about a Vampire the Masquerade like event that you can go to in Europe where you like play. Like,
it's in a castle. They only do it at night. Everybody's in like professional makeup and costuming.
You're spending like $5,000 to go.
It's insane looking.
It is. And I mean, if that's your vacation, you really love it, then cool. But also if you're spending every weekend working on your vampire, outfit, that might be a bit of an obsession you should talk to someone about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my opinion.
For some reason, when you phrase it that way, if you're spending every week working on your vampire outfit, I'm picturing a serial killer.
Your vampire outfit composed of the flesh of your victims. That's how I meant that. That's how I meant it.
The cops finally bust the guy, and they're like, well, he had some commitment to his craft. That's a pretty cool looking costume.
Hey, you know what? That's what the moms were worried about in the 80s.
Exactly.
Serial killers, Dungeons and Dragons, Vampire the Masquerade players. That's the problem.
The Satanic Panic.
There's one obsession that you should keep. It's your obsession with us. And we thank you for it.
Well, not us individually.
Yeah, no.
The podcast.
The podcast. Don't be obsessed with us individually.
Please.
No one wants that. No one.
And I'm not saying that we don't want your obsession and that would be creepy or something. We're not worth it.
You'll start doing a deep dive on us and be like, Jesus Christ, this is not how I want to spend my free time. But if you're obsessed, if you're anxious, talk to people about it. Find a support group. Find someone else who shares your obsession and talk with them about it. Like, because oftentimes people with obsessions will find communities and talk with them about it. Talk with how dedicated you feel about what and see their reaction to it.
Well, and that makes it a little healthier too.
Sure.
I think to have a community, you're with, I don't know, you're really into Star Trek,
Right.
you know, and you're constantly reading all the Enterprise manuals or
Mhm.
whatever people into Star Trek do.
Learn to speak Klingon
Yeah,
and Romulan.
yeah. And you find other people who are really into Star Trek, and there's communities out there, and you can go to conventions and etc. And I'll be a little bit of an asshole. If you're learning to speak Klingon, learn to speak a real language first. Like, you can learn to speak Klingon.
I mean, it's a
That's
real
fine.
language.
That's fine. But learn something that you can use also. Because if the only two languages you speak are English and Klingon, I will judge you. I'm sorry.
Really? Wait.
Yeah.
How many languages do you speak?
Huh? I don't speak Klingon.
Well, no, yeah, but how many languages do you speak? One?
I speak some Italian.
Some Italian?
Yeah.
Do you say like prego? Is that like
Yeah.
prego
My
pastas?
favorite Italian phrase is "Io sono con tutto mi piace."
What's that mean?
I throw down my arms at you.
Ooh, that's
But like you say that shit in Rome,
Game on.
you're in a fist fight.
nice. I like it. Fucking like I bite your thumb at you. I bite my
Yeah.
thumb at you. No. Don't be obsessed with us. Don't be obsessed with anything.
Yeah.
Try your best to
Learn
curb
Spanish, then Klingon.
your- Thank you so much for listening. Keep fighting. Remember that we love you. People out there love you, and you're amazing.